Be Frankie.
Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy B-Dell. If you're new to this channel, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. But today I'm going to give an esoteric decoding of the movie Deliverance and how it basically is acclimated to the metaphysics of demonology. When you're talking about horizontal gene transfer and the transmutation process of demonic spirits that transmute by way of energy exchange and electronic devices. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we finna get straight to it. So you got to watch this movie called Deliverance because it basically demonstrates the esoteric aspects of demons that don't take corporeal form and how they body snatch individuals who are vibrating at a low vibrational frequency. So you got to watch this movie. It's on Netflix because it's basically the epitome of the story that actually happened in Gary, Indiana. So there's a woman in Gary, Indiana. That's what the movie is basically based on. But we're going to get into the esoteric aspects of it because it all applies to everything when you're talking about the CERN portal that's underneath the Chicagoland area. So when you look at this publication right here, it tells you that the exorcism of Latoya Amon's demonic voice is caught in Gary, Indiana. So the plot of the movie and the setting of the movie is basically subjected to this woman right here because her and her children, they moved in this house in this geographical area in the Chicagoland area in Gary, Indiana. So, like I said, you got to watch this movie on Netflix called The Deliverance. So I'm going to give you, I'm going to play this video. It's going to give you a brief synopsis of what actually took place in real time because the movie, like I said, is basically a derivative of true events that actually happen in real life. So I'm going to play this video.
The last night we stayed in the house, that's when it was throwing my children around. We would grab the children and we would anoint them with olive oil and claim the blood of Jesus. And we would pray over them, praise his house.
I'm going to pause this for a second real quick. I got to interject because one thing about people when it comes to spirituality, they always say things like, well, B-Dell, why does the word Jesus work metaphysically when it comes to these spirits and these spirits go away when they hear the octave vibration of the word Jesus? Now I'm going to break it down to you. Because when you see the word Jesus, it's actually equated to gases. Those gases is basically influx of gamma radiation that works under the Venturi effect, which is a velocity of ether. So when you go to the Semitic language, the E is basically interchangeable with the letter A, and the letter J is interchangeable with the letter G. So when you say the word Jesus, you're saying Jesus, which is gases, which is ether. And ether are basically sun heat genes or prominences. So the letter J wasn't invented until 1565 in the English language. And then you got ether is basically omnipresent, and it's a spiritual detoxifier when you're talking about demons and things of that nature that don't take corporeal form, right? So that's why when you see demons like in the movie Deliverance, when she said the word Jesus, it was basically a form of protection. It was a defense mechanism. So that's why it basically worked. So now I'm going to go right back to the video. So that's, I had to bring that aspect out of it because a lot of people who are stuck in monotheistic religion and people who don't conform to monotheistic religion, they don't understand the metaphysics of the word Jesus. Because like I said, Jesus is a form of a gas. That gas is ether. So ether is a detoxifier that basically eradicates the illusionary perception that's being encapsulated by forms of demons. It basically eradicates demons, it dematerializes them, right?
And they would flee, but
They would flee.
they would get off of the children. The children would, become themselves again.
So it must be sheer terror or
Yes, I was very frightened. I knew I was up against something supernatural. I knew it wasn't anything of this world. I knew it was only one way to fight it, and that was with God. The last night we was there, it was very violent. It picked up a lamp from out of my bedroom and threw it into the living room. It was throwing chairs. They were throwing chairs. Oh yeah, it picked up like air freshener cans, threw the can. Everything was happening all at once. So we grabbed some clothes and grabbed what we could, and we ran out of the house. As we was running out of the house, it picked my oldest son up and threw him off the porch. It flipped him over and threw him off the porch. One of the demons his image started coming in full. Like we would see them, but we would see, like the shadows, like the ghostly look of them.
were the shadows, forgive my
Now,
ignorance,
I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna interject again. Now, one thing you got to understand about the energy extractions in a metaphysical form of demonology. When demons extract the energy of fear from humans, that's when they get more powerful to where they're able to take corporeal form. It's kind of like the same concept of technological devices. Technology has the ability to extract a form of radiation that extracts neurons from the body, and they upload that information to a neuromorphic cyber cloud to where artificial intelligence is able to take upon the physiology or the concept or the ideologies of humans on the planet. So the same thing is actually translated when you're talking about demons. The more they get more powerful, the more powerful they get, they're able to show their physical structure and physical form. There's a movie that you got to watch called Afraid that's based on artificial intelligence. They had these sentient entities. They had a consciousness, and they was basically taking over the house that was being propagated by a form of artificial intelligence. So we're going to get through that as we get through the presentation, but I have to incorporate that. So the more demons get stronger, the more they start to show their physical structure because it's extracting the fear molecules from human bodies. So that means that they need the human vessel. They need the human vessel in the form of a host, right? So that's why I said it's a part of the process of horizontal gene transfer, right? So this is all scientific and metaphysical. It's not only subjected to a form of spiritual context.
we never witnessed it. And were the shadows, these are shadows on the wall, were these shadows in the center?
No, but like as if a person was walking around.
So they felt like they had some substance for their
shadow. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So you'd seen those, which sounds
Yes.
horrible.
Yes.
To experience.
Some of my other guests who came by, they saw them as well. So it had us. Nobody would come back. No friends, no family wanted to come around, and we understood because it was scary. But at the same time, we felt alone, hurt, lost, and we had no one to depend on but the Lord. So we stayed strong, kept our faith strong, and we became so strong that we decided to just fight. It was do or die. It's either you fight or you die.
one time she woke up in the middle of the night, maybe like 3 in the morning, and they saw this shadowy figure pacing back and forth in the living room.
And I saw one like coming into full image. It's coming out of the closet. I've never seen it like that before.
Whenever you would praise God in Latin, no reaction. But you start condemning the demon, condemning, the evil spirit, all of a sudden she's reacting to that.
It can actually possess you, use you, so you can give them the souls, and then make you take your own life, So, I mean,
Dr. Follow-up segment tonight. Last night, we told you about a 9-year-old Indiana boy who apparently was doing some very shocking things, so much so that exorcism was involved. The Indianapolis Star, that state's biggest newspaper, is heavily covering the story, and a captain in the Gary, Indiana Police Force, Charles Austin, says the situation is credible. That is incredible. Joining us now from Chicago, Father Michael Maginot, a Catholic priest who has been dealing with the situation. So, Father, I want to keep this fact-based, what you know, what you saw, what you did. Let's start with the boy. What do you know about him?
Actually, I have never met any of the children. The first time I heard about the incident was when just after the boy walked up the wall backwards. There was a furor there, people running out, calling for the police, security, the chaplain. He called me. I was in my parish conducting a Bible study class, and I got the call because I was on call for the Catholic priest chaplain who was off at that time. And they called me in to do an exorcism. And I said,
let me stop you there. Exorcism is a very rare and serious thing with the Catholic Church. And you have to go through a lot of hoops to get it approved, to get the people in. It disturbs me a little bit that the boy involved, and this is according to the newspaper and other eyewitnesses, was doing incredible things like walking up walls and things like that. But you yourself never talked to the boy. Why not?
Well, when I went to do the interview at the home with the mother and the grandmother, it was a 4-hour interview. And the first 2 hours were basically just getting information of all the occurrences and phenomena that was surrounding everything leading up to that incident at the emergency room in the hospital.
The problem I'm having with this is, number one, you didn't see the boy. I think the credibility of the Catholic Church is in a tough way now in this country. Exorcism is a very serious thing, very, very serious. I understand you got permission from the bishop in your diocese to do this. But it just seems to me that the story is not solid enough to go public with it. And there are a lot of people watching right now and say this is more mumbo jumbo from the Roman Catholic Church and no credibility here at all. How would you answer that?
Well, the 2 boys and the girl one was put into a lockdown psychological children's ward, and the other 2 were taken to the Carmelite sisters who take care of foster children. And so they were taken away from the parents and from the mother and the grandmother. And so I didn't have access to them. And I discovered in the investigation that the mother was also possessed. Mainly at the very end, I put the crucifix on her forehead and she began to convulse.
As a Catholic priest for many years, you believe that there is something unworldly involved with this family. You do believe that? All right. Well,
yeah, I do.
I'm going to stop it there, and we appreciate your time very much.
Thank you. Reporter with the Indianapolis Star who wrote the initial story and conducted more than a dozen interviews on it. Marissa Kwiatkowski is with me now. Marissa, good to see you. Let me start with this. After all the interviews you did of independent third-party witnesses and so on, do you believe the story?
It's not my job to believe or disbelieve this story. I will leave that to others.
It's not your job, but what do you think? I'm asking you. I mean, were you persuaded at all?
It's not my job to be persuaded either way. My job is to report the facts as they were told to me and to let people draw their own conclusions, and I wrote it that way deliberately.
Well, let me ask you this. You've got a police captain saying he believes. Did you interview the people who claim to have seen the boy walking backwards up the wall?
I interviewed the registered nurse who witnessed or says he witnessed the boy walking backward up the wall. I did not interview the Department of Child Services caseworker. However, I had her report from that incident.
And did she claim to see it as well?
She claimed to see it as well, yes.
Do you have any reason to doubt their accounts? I mean, as a reporter, you always go in skeptical.
I think they believe it, yes.
Is there any reason that you uncovered to doubt them? In other words, any history of their relationship with the truth, any performance complaints, that kind of thing?
Good question. No, there weren't any sorts of situations that gave me pause. People in credible positions doing typical work and, nothing to report.
How many eyewitnesses were there to the so-called possessed behavior other than the mother? Because, the mother may or may not have had issues. There was a psychologist saying she's got some issues and the kids are basically performing for her. How many people outside of the family who are verifying these accounts?
You mean in the hospital or outside of the hospital?
Anybody outside of the family?
It would take me a bit of time to count, but at least 5 or 6 people who say they witnessed things that were strange.
Is there any audio or visual?
There are not audio or visual representations of the boy walking up the wall or the levitation. There are photos of things that police saw while they were in the home, but nothing, no demons or paranormal or anything like that.
All right, we'll continue to follow it. Thanks for bringing it to our attention, Marissa. All the best.
Now, mind you, in the movie, the kid, he walked up backwards when he was under demonic possession, right? And there's another publication or another video that basically demonstrates more of these occurrences that happen within that house in the geographical area of Gary, Indiana. Now, this is what I found that was very critical. Now, when you look at the Chicagoland area, right, you got Gary, where that metaphysical demonic forces was basically happening, where you had the portal opened up of 200 demons within that household. Then you got all these areas in the Chicagoland area, right? And you have Fermilab, which is a organization that propagates particle physics, right? So one thing you got to understand about particle physics is basically in alignment to the same organization when you're talking about the CERN machine, right? Because there's a CERN machine underneath the Chicagoland area. So when you understand that demons have the ability to possess themselves through technology when you understand that demons have the ability to possess themselves through technological devices and electronics, you will know that it operates by way of oscillating signals or whatever, right? So with that being said, there's a CERN portal underneath the Chicagoland area, right? Which is not a coincidence. And we all know what CERN is being used for. It's basically being weaponized to smash up particles with a hadron collider to manipulate the space-time continuum and open up portals for where these entities that don't take corporeal form can hijack the vessels of individuals who are vibrating at a low vibrational frequency, or hijack the vessels of those who are basically NPCs, right? So this is a CERN portal, CERN machine in the geographical area of the Chicagoland area, right? And it has the abilities to stretch all the way from Chicago to Naperville, all the way to Gary, Indiana, because one thing you got to understand about CERN, CERN has the ability to produce an energy of 1.3 terahertz frequencies, which can basically power 300 homes, right, for at least 1 year. So that's why I said demons possess themselves through technological devices, electronics, by way of the oscillating signals, right? So it's not a coincidence that you see the CERN portals, the CERN machine, Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory, located in Batavia, Illinois, near Chicago, is a United States Department of Energy national laboratory specializing in high energy particle physics. Fermi Lab's main injector, 2 miles in circumference, is the laboratory's most powerful particle accelerator. And see, this is why you got to understand that geographical area in the Chicagoland area, there's an influx of criminality and violence, right? So this is where you get the concept of drill music and where people are basically on demon time, because the demons in that geographical area is hijacking the bodies of individuals all throughout the Chicagoland area, right? So you got portals opened up, not only in Gary, Indiana, where the house was, you got portals opened up all throughout this landmass, right? So that's why, you know, Chicago is very heavy in gang culture, right? So that energy is being weaponized by way of the particle accelerator called Fermi Lab, that's basically a subcontractor of the CERN machine, right? So that's not a coincidence. So there's a CERN machine that opens up portals in between Gary, Indiana, Hammond, Indiana, East Chicago, Indiana, all throughout the Chicagoland area, right? Now, when it comes to the metaphysical aspect of when you're talking about jinns and demons and apparitions, these entities that hijack the vessels of individuals who are vibrating in a low vibrational state, these are basically essentially draconian reptilians, or what you call them, great aliens. Because as I was telling you before, that great aliens are basically your sheer form of a demon, because they don't have any type of reproductive organ. So they take upon the physiology of humans who are vibrating in a low vibrational state to hijack their vessel, right? To extract their energy, because in a parallel universe, their world was basically destroyed. So when you're talking about demons and sleep paralysis and stuff like that, you're really talking about interdimensional, low vibrational extraterrestrials who are basically being extracted from the demiurge, right? So this is why you see a draconian hijacking the body of an individual, right? So the reason why you're not able to see the great majority of these entities is because it's being used by way of liquid crystal polarization, right? That operates on the subatomic energy of the photon-like spectrum. So photons have the ability to basically cloak demons and jinns or draconians or grays, right? But like I said, when the veil is officially lifted, you will be able to see these entities all around you. But these entities, they operate by way of extracting energy. Like I said, Earth is basically a prison planet. So when you extract the energy of humans, it makes their physical vessel or their spiritual vessel a lot more stronger, right? So this is why you got to get this book that I'm going to show you. It shows you a entity hijacking the body. But one thing you got to understand about technological devices is also the epitome of the lunar light lock. And that lunar light lock basically extracts neurons from the body, which is basically microscopic forms of subatomic energy sucking away your energy, right? And when it sucks away your energy, it puts you at a low vibrational state to where your nervous system is basically being manipulated. When your nervous system is manipulated, this is when you have holes in your auric field. When you have a hole in your auric field, kind of like when you have a hole in your tire, this is where air is able to infiltrate the tire and basically flatten the tire. So when you have holes inside your aura, this is when your auric field is basically being deflated to where these entities can infiltrate in a vaporizing form and take over your physical vessel, right? When you're in a state of toxicity, when you're at a low vibrational state, when you're depressed and things of that nature. So this is why it's imperative to understand that you must think in a high vibrational frequency. You must uplift yourself. You must get yourself in alignment, right? Get your chakra system in alignment. Get rid of those energy blockages, because when you have holes in your aura, this is where these entities is able to attach themselves to your solar plex and control you like a remote control, right? And do whatever they want to do. So you got to get this book right here called Body Snatching. So a lot of people's perception of what draconians and entities and things of that nature, you're really talking about, when you talk about jinns and demons and apparitions, you're really talking about interdimensional extraterrestrials. That is basically the esoteric aspect of it, right? But from a biblical context, they're just going to tell you that these are just six ether spirits and things of that nature. No, it's a lot more deeper than that, right? Because you gotta ask yourself, why is everything on the planet being weaponized in the form of eugenics, right? That's because these entities, they want to have a physical vessel, and in order to do that, they weaponize the Canaanite bloodline who controls the Roman occupational government. They use their operations and their organizations and their corporate infrastructure. They masquerade it as a form of eugenics, and the eugenics is basically extracting your biological vessel. So it's basically everything on planet Earth is a form of a blood ritual. Everything is based on ritualistic practices, right? But they hide it in a form of technology. They hide it in a form of business. They hide it in a form of organizations, right? So like I said, it's a lot more deeper than what you think it is. So like I said, when they do these rituals, they're basically summoning extraterrestrial entities, right? Which is why you see the gray. So that's why it's imperative to understand that ontological artifacts and art that basically displays what's taking place in the physical form and reality, because the perception of art imitates reality. So everything that you see in art is basically taking place in this actually this third density. So when you look at the arts, ontological artifacts, it shows you demons who are basically draconian reptilian. It shows you the Pope right here who are draconian reptilian. These are, these entities or these deep state shadow government factions, they make pacts with demons, right? These demons take over the vessel of humans, just like the lady in the house in the movie Deliverance, right? This is why they open up portals so much with the CERN machine, right? So like I said, you got to watch this movie called Deliverance. Right? Because as I was telling you before, demons have the ability to possess themselves through people by way of artificial intelligence, technological devices, and many different forms of technology. So like I said, when you study ontology, look at the arts. It's showing you a draconian reptilian sitting on top of a man, which is where you get your whole concept of sleep paralysis. Right? Because sleep paralysis, what happens is when the entity is able to extract the neurons from the body and they feed on your loosh, which is what makes you paralyzed, because your nervous system is basically being shut down because the entity took over your biological vessel, right? So this is why you see the draconian sitting on top of a man. So it's not a ghostly spirit or whatever you're talking about. These are entities, interdimensional extraterrestrials, who are basically trying to hijack the bodies of human beings on the planet. So that's why everything within the construct of the third dimensional matrix is at a low vibrational state. They keep you at a low vibrational state by way of the movies, the music, the food, the technology, because that's when these entities that the government made a pact with, they can take over your physical vessel, right? So it shows you right here, like I said, study the arts, study ontological artifacts. It's showing you, it shows you right here, a Catholic cardinal or a pope politicking with an entity, a draconian, right? Shows you another at the bottom, a draconian. Now, when you study the archons and Gnosticism, draconians are basically also the epitome of your 200 fallen angels, or draconian reptilians, or the cherubim. Now, when you study Goetic magic and the 72 demons of Goetia, right? This is all acclimated to what's taking place in physical form, because as I was telling you before, physical manipulation is transmuted by the energy of the metaphysical realm, right? And it also, there's another video, I can't find it, but she said that the demon's name in the house was Beelzebub, which is also known as the seven princes of hell, or what you call as Baal or Baal, which is equated to Moloch. So notice in the movie, he wanted the child because the child had a benevolent spirit to him. So in the demon's eyes, he was seen to be weak. Now, we all know that the inception of Babylonian culture, when you get into Baal and Moloch, they wanted the energy of children. This is what the system feeds on. It feeds on the energy of children, right? By way of the adrenochrome and things of that nature. But that's a whole different, transmission. So when you go to the Grand Grimoire, Bel and Baal is also synonymous with Moloch or Beelzebub. And she said that the demon's name was Beelzebub. I gotta find that other video. I meant to incorporate it in this presentation, but I don't have it. So that's why, it's imperative to understand that I know the great majority of people remember this publication that came out. It says that the Vatican is preparing for guidelines for apparitions and other supernatural phenomenon. This happened, they put this out back in May of 2024 of this year, in the beginning of the summertime, right? Now, one thing you got to understand is that they put movies out according to the timeline of what's happening on a metaphysical level, right? That's why I said it's imperative to understand and watch these movies, but don't watch the movies in the form of entertainment. Look at the movies for mental and spiritual fortitude to get the edification to where you have the spiritual resources to combat the energy and the afflictions that's going to be propagated by these entities who are basically controlling your factions of government and parliament and things of that nature. So, like I said, the Vatican is preparing guidelines for apparitions and other supernatural phenomena, right? So they're actually preparing us for something that's going to be taking place because, like I said, these entities, they need a physical vessel. So how you know that they're not basically taking the physical vessel of the Venezuelan gangs and things of that nature when you're talking about the expansion of borders? Because I was telling you before, democracy is the epitome of Babylonian culture. Babylonian culture is connected to Baal or Moloch. The lady said that the demon's name in her house was Baal or Baal, which is equated to Moloch. That's connected to Babylonian culture, right? So it's not a coincidence that you see all these alignments and synchronicities happening during the same time when you have current events lining up with certain movies, right? Because all this stuff is basically a metaphysical codex with the timeline of eschatology. So remember this happened, right? They said that the demon face syndrome, right? So one thing you got to understand about the demon face syndrome, they're basically telling you in your face that you will see people who have the ability to shapeshift, just like the little boy in the movie and the older woman in the movie. She was able to shapeshift. She shapeshifted and her face changed up, right? You see her face right here. She looks like a draconian. Shapeshifting. Demons have the ability to shapeshift because, like I said, they extract the neurons from the biological vessel when they're able to control the person's nervous system. And then that's when they take over their energetic morphic field. Gotta watch this movie Deliverance. There's a lot of nuggets in it, and that's going to give you the clarity that you need when you're trying to understand the metaphysical aspect of demons. Now, back to the presentation. Now, remember they came out with this publication talking about demonic faces when you're talking about the demon face syndrome, right? Because you got portals opening up. The deep state shadow government is on their last leg. So they're going to do any type of rituals to put humanity at a low vibrational state so where these entities is able to hijack the bodies, and the demons who are basically archonic forces who control the three-dimensional realm, they want to keep this illusion going because the illusion is the epitome of their food source, right? To keep people in a perpetual state of reincarnation under the sleep spell of King Gu and the sleep spell of Leviathan, right? So this movie, don't let this movie be a form of technology to trick you right back into religion. That was another thing that this movie was being weaponized for. This movie was being weaponized to trick you right back into religion. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for the technology and the semantics that's being controlled by the factions of government who control the movie industry, right? So now, as I was telling you before, demons have the ability to possess themselves through people through technological devices and electronics by way of oscillating signals. Because as I was telling you before, the energy of CERN has 1.3 terahertz frequency. That's enough energy to power 300,000 homes for 1 year. So technological devices by way of thermodynamics has the ability to create a form of kinetic energy that creates a form of a temperature to extract the radiation in the neurons from the body of the host to where the entity is able to cloak itself in a form of liquid crystal polarization and take upon the physiology of the human that is basically trying to hijack in the form of body snatching, right? So this is what you call Maxwell's demon, which is a thought experiment that basically is connected to the second law of thermodynamics, right? Because energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transferred. And it's transferred by way of technological devices or by way of energy transmutation process when you touch in certain individuals, because our biological vessels is highly magnetic and electrical, right? So you can basically take upon the frequency of a person's demonic force if they're hijacked by a demon just by, being around in their cipher, right? So you got to look at it from that aspect. And then you also got to watch this movie called Afraid. This is where artificial intelligence, like I said, has the ability to manipulate everything in third density. So the entity of AI, her name was Aya. So Aya was being controlled by a supercomputer. And that supercomputer was being controlled by a certain faction within the movie who I think was basically Ashtar Command, because they was working with the supercomputer, but the supercomputer is on the dark side of the moon, right? When you're talking about the National Geospatial of the Green Beret and the Black Beret that works in tandem with the Majestic 12. And the supercomputer has the ability to manipulate kinetic energy and basically project entities and spirits in the third density to hijack forms of technology, right? So that's why they want to turn the planet into a cybernetic dictatorship under a totalitarian government, right? Because they want to merge humans with cybernetics, because when you merge human with machine, what happens? This is where these entities is able to hijack the technology and take over the physical vessel, right? So that's why in the movie, one thing you got to understand about the metaphysical aspect of the movie is that when you see the movie took over the role of the father and the mother, but the man and the woman conjoined together represents a centripetal and a centrifugal force. See, the man represents the 5-pointed star, the woman represents the 6-pointed star. So when you amalgamate the 5 and the 6 together, you get 11. 11 is your personification of abracadabra. So that's why in the movie, artificial intelligence was able to give them their wishes of everything that they was basically asking for when they was basically asking a demon for these wishes, right? They was actually performing goetic magic, asking, the demon to take care of this, to take care of that by way of artificial intelligence. So you got to watch this movie right here. Now, I'm going to give a brief synopsis for those coming in. Like I said, you got to watch this movie, Deliverance, because the movie Deliverance is telling you about a certain, metaphysical thing that actually happened in real life, and they turned it into a movie. So this movie is on Netflix. So don't let this movie scare you right back into the church. Like I said, everything they do is a form of reversing the polarity, to reverse the frequency of the unity consciousness. Because the more you wake up, they try to rock you right back to sleep with religion and media, entertainment. Don't let this movie rock you right back to sleep and put you in a state of monotheistic religion. So the real story of this movie, Deliverance, is based on this movie based on this lady called Latoya Amons, right? And her house is in Gary, Indiana. So as I was telling people before about the metaphysical octave frequency of the word Jesus, right? The word Jesus, as they was talking about in the movie, the word Jesus had a lot of power, right? Because when you study the inception and the mechanics of the word Jesus comes from the word gases, which is ether. Now, when you go to the Semitic language, E is interchangeable with A, and the letter J is interchangeable with G. So when you saying Jesus, you saying Jesus, which is gases, which is ether. Ether activates by way of sun heat genes and prominences, which are basically intelligence molecules. And those intelligence molecules are basically omnipresent, which is a spiritual detoxifier that eradicates demons. So that's why in the movie, when she said the word Jesus, that's why it helps, because the octave vibration of the word Jesus basically dematerializes to where these demons is able to stray away, right? Not because you believe in Jesus so much, but the inception and the mechanics of the word comes from the Semitic language, which is a tonal language. The tonal language has the ability to manipulate everything in a simulation. So the letter J wasn't invented in the English language until 1565. Right? So now, like I said, you have a CERN portal underneath the geographical area of Chicago, right? And the Chicagoland area is comprised of Gary, Indiana, and East Chicago, which is basically a suburb of Chicago. Because I went to school in Chicago, so I know this already. I went to school in Chicago, and when you go through Gary, Indiana, it's like a desolate area. It's like a ghost town, basically. So one thing you got to understand about the Chicagoland area, they have a place called Fermilab, which is basically a particle accelerator that's basically a subcontractor with the CERN machine, right? So one thing you got to understand about the Fermilab is a metaphysical technological device that operates on oscillating signals, right? And that was, as I was telling you before, the oscillating signals has the ability to possess an energy of 1.3 terahertz frequency that can power 300,000 homes for at least 1 year, right? So they open up these portals in this geographical area because in the movie, as I was telling you before, they said that it was at least 200 demons in her home. There was a portal opened up. Why is there a portal open up? Because there's a portal open up all throughout this geographical landmass, because there's a CERN portal underneath the Chicagoland area where you have Gary, East Chicago, Naperville. This whole geographical area is being manipulated by a particle accelerator. So it's not a coincidence that when you study ontological artifacts, it shows you draconian reptilians or gray aliens. These are your so-called demons who hijack the vessels of individuals who are at a low vibrational state. These are the body snatchers, right? So you can't look at things from a biblical context. You got to look at it from an esoteric and a metaphysical context. That's when you get supreme understanding, right? So it all correlates to Gnosticism when you're talking about the archonic forces, which is an illustration of draconian reptilians basically attacking a man. Study the Goetic demons, 72 demons of Goetia, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, this movie is being used as a form of semantics and technology to weaponize it in a form of trying to bring back people into monotheistic religion. Don't let this movie scare your ass back into the church. Don't let this movie scare your ass back into the mosque. You know, don't let this movie scare your ass right back into the synagogue, right? Because like I said, this movie is being used to weaponize people to get them acclimated to monotheistic religion, because religion in itself is a soul trap. And these entities that don't take corporeal form, who live in the lower third dimension and the fourth dimension, right? The demiurge, they look for individuals to worship things outside of themselves. So when you worship things outside of yourself, you're attaching your life source and your frequency to these demons, right? So that's why it's imperative to understand the semantics that's being played in Hollywood, right? Everything is flipped around. Everything is basically a reverse of polarity. So when you look at things from a metaphysical standpoint, they can never trick you. So that's why it's imperative to understand that you got to have your mental and your spiritual fortitude turned on during this time period, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, get this video out there. Thanks for watching this video. End of transmission.
10:14. We will put an end to this madness.
It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. Karma's gonna get to you, and then you'll have a chariot with only one less friend. Now I had distant folks that are looking to my eyes to understand the wisdom he's given and his wealth from the skies. So thanks for this meal that I'm about to receive, and thank you for my health and all the good memories. Thanks for the courage taking on another day, when I used to not believe, but now I know about grace. Stay away from the fire, cause the flames does burn. Go with your gut feeling, when it's wrong you learn. For every one step I take, the Lord takes two. And do unto others if you want it done unto you. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. This a completion, the selfish Proto-Grecian, Amerindian, Phoenician. I'm the last of the Mohicans, the bastard of the land, the pen, melanin, accretion. And we just trying to get back to the fact that we was kings and queens of a land before the avalanche seized it. I live on Turtle Island with the rest of the diseased. Better than the medicine for 7 different treatments. Niggas try to ride away but end up getting seasick. The sleep can feel my words like Braille, and they're awakened with the penmanship of Hindu script written in them vacant monastery honor. Honorary payments to the prototype. Tomorrow's only a day away, but nothing happens overnight. The fuck's wrong with going left when you know it's right? Biting off more than I can chew, that's an overbite. Black on black crime is like watching 2 soldiers fight when all along they was on the same page. History. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land.